Yesterday we talked about questions that were asked of Jesus and about how very often Jesus provided answers that raised more questions about the asker than answering the question that they wanted. Jesus had more important things to do than simply provide answers to questions that they wanted. Jesus had to teach as well. And Jesus also very often looked behind the question to the motivations that are there. Let me give you an example of this. It's found in Matthew chapter 22. This is a very famous example of a question brought before Jesus. Matthew chapter 22, notice verse 15. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. So we know the motivation. So did Jesus. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Remember yesterday we said, if a person dislikes you, there's nothing you can say that could be the right answer. But if a person likes you, then there's no answer you could give that could be considered wrong. Very often it's not a matter of right or wrong, but our likes and our dislikes. Notice how Jesus saw through it. Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. And they brought him a denarius, and he asked them, which image is this, and whose inscription? Caesar, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And when they heard this, they were amazed, so they left him and went away. Now, the Zealots of the time, the Jews who were called Zealots, did not pay taxes to Rome unless their life was on the line for it. They were tax objectors. They'd almost give up their lives for not paying taxes. And they do this for very religious reasons. Some are more cooperative Jews who did pay taxes. They came to Jesus and they said, what do you think? See, this question was asked to force Jesus to take sides in this argument. They thought that they had fashioned the perfect question so that Jesus could be labeled either a zealot or an agent of Rome. They thought they had the perfect question. Who knows how long they committed about this before they came up with this perfect scenario. See, the deeper issue was not to argue about paying taxes, but to render to God the things that are God's. Remember the biggest reason that people are repelled by the true God. Listen to me now. The biggest reason that people are repelled by the Bible and by the true God is because they want to justify their own sinfulness. And they believe that they are free people apart from God. The reason people justify their sin is to somehow deal with their awareness of their own separation from righteousness and God himself. That is behind so much of this pseudo-intellectual reasoning that we hear today. The real problem with the unbelieving Jew was not a technical question about taxes. The real problem was the word priority. What is the priority here? Go ahead and give to Caesar what's Caesar's. It doesn't matter. But what God demands of you is everything. Are you ready to give it? Are you ready to give it? Sometimes there was a question that was real mockery, not a question at all. Very often, this was a satirical question, a sarcastic question, somehow meant to trap Jesus and to make him look foolish. Jesus had no time for such things, and very often his answer was complete silence. During his own trial, remember the silence with which he defended himself. Oftentimes the question that is placed before us is not one that is actually being given so that an answer could be given, but really is just opening a door to a discussion. But very often it's just a matter of trying to figure out how it is that you can get help from a person without looking like you're needy. And so you ask a philosophical question. Reminds me of the woman at Jacob's well. Remember when she had been identified as a woman that had had 5 husbands, and the one she was living with wasn't her own. Remember, it was at that immediate moment that she decided to ask a question that would indicate a very religious point of view regarding where you should worship in the land of the Sadducees, in the land of the outtrodden, the Samaritans, or back in Jerusalem. See, that wasn't her question. Really wasn't a question as to where you should worship, but can we please talk about anything other than my own life? Can we talk about something other than what? And I don't know who told you what's going on, but can we talk about something else quick? A sincere question about priorities is asked Jesus in Mark and chapter 12. Mark chapter 12, maybe the most famous question that is ever asked of Jesus. Mark chapter 12, we're going to begin with verse 28. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating, noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer. He asked him, of all the commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. This is called the Shema. The Jews mentioned this many times a day. It was a word of faith. It was their being grounded back in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was the Shema, the Jewish response of dedication to God. And then Jesus went on. Jesus went on with something else. And the second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. Listen to the response. Well said, teacher, the man replied. You are right in saying that God is one and there's no other but him. To love him with all of your heart and with all of your understanding and with all of your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. When Jesus saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. There is not another response to a question asker like this from Jesus in the New Testament. So sometimes you can ask the right question. Sometimes motives are right. And Jesus singles you out as one who came to him with an honest, sincere question. See, the main idea of our study yesterday and now today is that many questions are not sincere in their inquiry. And very often we need to handle them with both wisdom, discretion, and boldness, and above all, compassion for the heart behind the question. For there are questions, and there are questions.